Welcome to Vermontitude, a collaborative effort between Great Eastern Radio, the Brattleboro Reformer, and BCTV to bring you the stories behind the stories on the topics you want to learn more about. Because there's always more, so there'll always be Vermontitude. Hosted by me, Peter Fish Case. Welcome to Vermontitude. New episodes drop every Tuesday and can be found by going to vermontitude.com, reformer.com, brattleboro.tv, and locally on Comcast Channel 1078. We come to you from our studios at the Innovation Box on Flat Street. I'm Peter Fish Case, and each week I cover the topics that are of concern to Windham County and the towns that reside within its borders. Joining us today is the Executive Director of Frontline Foundations, Mike Cancellieri. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. All right, let's get right into this. We have been kind of chatting a little bit on and offline, and I thought it would be a good idea to take the opportunity to do something. The Outer Limits Health Club is put together this thing for a 9/11 sort of remembrance, and it's for climbing stairs, 2,200 steps. You can sign up in half-hour blocks. What's the significance of 20? Is there a significance to 2,200 steps?
Yeah, I would say that's the amount of stairs that were in the Twin Towers.
Okay.
That many of our firefighters and other first responders, police officers were up and down those stairs for a lot of that morning until the towers collapsed. So yeah, climbing stairs on 9/11 is a pretty good way to observe, get a little skin in the game, observe 9/11.
So what does Frontline Foundations do? I mean, I know what they do, but explain to the people what it is that you do.
Sure. We are a outpatient mental health clinic for veterans and first responders. We have a mindfulness-based approach. We teach mindfulness and other skills to help people that have had difficult careers dealing with things that most people are unable or unwilling to deal with, to help those people deal with the trauma from that.
Okay.
So we also do in-service trainings for fire departments, police departments, private ambulance services for resiliency skills.
Okay, and this is just something that is ongoing. This isn't specifically just for first responders, but we do military. We do the whole breadth of anybody that has sort of had a very. How would you define these? I mean, they're first responders mainly is what we focus on, but like what do we call these kind of careers?
Yeah. Well, the easy way to talk about it is veterans and first responders. But I think where you're going with this points to something that we are dealing with right now. We've started to accept a few clients from like DCF, Department of Children and Family Services, and some emergency department healthcare workers, because it's less about the actual uniform that you wear, and it's more about if you have the same injury or not. And that injury that we are treating comes from dealing with things that most people don't want to deal with.
Right.
If you're a DCF investigator, if you're an emergency room nurse, if you're a police officer, a firefighter, certainly if you're in the military, you are dealing with people on the absolute worst day of their life. And that is your job every day. So that's not free. You can't be a healthy human being and continue to do that for an entire career without there being some cost. The skills that we teach offset the cost of doing these types of jobs. They allow our people to live healthy and productive lives, even in the face of all the trauma that they deal with professionally.
Right. And this is all done as a registered nonprofit within the state of Vermont. You work out of Bellows Falls, Vermont, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We're in the health center in Bellows Falls, and we are a registered 501c3 nonprofit. For our 5-day program, where people come to us for 5 days of skills training and treatment for PTSD, we work with a variety of health insurance carriers. We certainly make individual payment arrangements, and we will never turn away someone for inability to pay, whether we take their insurance or not. If we have the right medicine for where they're at and they're a good fit for what we do, they are welcome, and we will figure out how to keep our doors open as we go, and that is actually, the type of thing that Outer Limits Gym is doing is something that helps us.
Right, exactly. So yeah, thank you for tying that back in. So that's where Michael Hayden, who's the owner, a former firefighter, current EMT, I know he speaks very highly of your program. He has to me before. Came up with this way just to sort of observe 9/11 so that we don't forget. I know we talked a little bit about this before we started taping. It's still a day that is, at least for me personally, sort of sticks with me. Now it's $5 to do this, all of which will go to you. I mean, if you want to write a bigger check, that's fine. They'll take it, but moreover, the Frontline Foundations is a nonprofit doing critical work for our first responders and our veterans, and as you said, now expanding into, I think, like DCF and some of the things that they see. Yeah, makes 100% sense.
Same injury.
Yep. So when you say injury, explain what that means to somebody who might not be following along.
Cool. All right. So here's an example I use in my classes. Let's say you're a Major League Baseball catcher. How many seasons does a successful Major League catcher have in the MLB? I don't know nothing about baseball.
All right. So, anywhere between 12 and 18.
Cool. How many games are there in an MLB season?
162.
Okay. So that's a lot of time that this catcher spends on, crouching down, a lot of stress on the knees.
Yep.
At the end of this successful catcher's career, will anyone have any questions about why he might have some knee troubles?
No.
Right. It's clear as day. No one has any questions. No one has any judgment. It's pretty clear. It's like, yeah, this guy was down here crouching for many, many, many hours.
Right.
That's why when they call, PTSD a disorder, it's post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
We find, in our philosophy, we find that term disorder can be misleading because it makes it sound like there's something wrong with you.
Right.
It makes it sound like if you're a catcher that there's something wrong with you. Why are your knees all banged up after 12 seasons in MLB? It's not a disorder. It's a very predictable consequence of dealing with the trauma that our vets and first responders see over the course of a career. It's an injury.
Right.
The body and the mind react to trauma and stress, certainly cumulative stress. And so it's a very predictable outcome. It's a very predictable injury. And it's also very treatable, which is what a lot of people, I think, don't know. And I think just the D in PTSD as a disorder is that's great for insurance companies and it's great for the DSM.
Yeah.
It's not so good for our people. So it's an injury. It's the accumulation of stress and it's the effects of the body or that linger in the body and the mind.
Yeah, I think I had the opportunity to talk to somebody who had been through your program. I don't know, a year or so ago, and one of the things that she had said to me was a healer needing healing.
Yeah,
and that has always resonated with me as far as the work that Frontline Foundations does. If you have ever had to dial 911, you need to remember how that moment felt.
Yeah.
And that this person might answer that call 3 or 4 times a day. Mm-hmm. And if they are working a 5-day work week, they are, anywhere between 10 to 20 of these calls in a week.
Yeah.
And as you say, that's how you develop this injury.
Sure. And in between all of that, you're answering calls from or text messages from your children or from your spouse, and then you got to go home and have dinner, and then you have to pretend that on Saturday morning when you wake up that everything is just fine. It's not so easy. Going to all those calls that you mentioned, maybe each one of them is like the worst thing that's ever happened to that person who made the 911 call. Well, what about the people that show up to that? And that's their job, as you say, every day, day in and day out.
Right.
And it's very difficult to integrate all of that with a healthy family life.
And their job when you dial 911 is to show up in your worst moment and try to make you feel better.
Right.
It's crazy.
Exactly. Who's going to take care of these people?
Right, exactly. So and this is the kind of work that Frontline Foundations does. So the Outer Limits Health Club is doing a little fundraiser to help them do this kind of work. And you can just call the Outer Limits at 802-257-2348 or, just look it up, Google it, or just stop by and get yourself registered. I think they're doing half-hour blocks 2,200 steps. It's $5 to get involved in it. It's not a lot of money. It's literally a fancy coffee, and you're done. But if you want to write a check for more, I'm sure that they'll take it. Again, this is the Outer Limits Health Club. But Mike, let's go back to Frontline Foundations, and if somebody is sitting, what signs, if somebody wants to, I guess, reach out to Frontline Foundations and say, you know, wow, I have a spouse, a sibling, a husband, a wife that could really use this. Like, what are some of the signs that they should be looking for?
Well, you know, one thing that happens when you deal with this kind of trauma is you have to build up a wall in your own heart to prevent all of the tragedy that you're seeing on a daily basis from, like, pollution, I think is a good word, from polluting, like, your sense of self. And so in order to keep all of that from taking you down, that wall is there. It also keeps out all the good stuff about your family.
Yeah.
And so withdrawal is a huge part of this.
Okay.
So people that are going through a hard time and they're not at the dinner table anymore. They're downstairs watching YouTube or playing video games or whatever. Not all of these things are bad.
Right.
If certain things that you might notice, it's easier for me to talk to the people themselves as opposed to family members. So it's like, if you're a veteran or first responder and you're wondering why no one texts you anymore, and you realize it's because you always blow all your friends off,
right?
Because you'd rather be at home not dealing with anything. That's a sign that you might want to get a little bit of help and learn a little bit of skills to offset some of this trauma. A big one for my vets and first responders that I think they could be aware of, nobody wants to talk about dark humor, but dark humor is a big deal in these types of professions. It's not because people are necessarily twisted. They have a twisted sense of humor. It's something that arises naturally in stressful occupations because you have to offset the trauma with a couple of laughs to make it through a career.
Right.
So something to really watch out for is, in the face of that dark humor, when somebody makes a joke that you ordinarily would have laughed at while you're in uniform. And it's not even, dark humor can go too far, believe me.
Yeah.
But when someone makes a minor joke that you normally would have laughed at and it hits you the wrong way and you're like, man, that's not funny. And then it kind of astounds you that you reacted that way and like, wow, why didn't I think that was funny anymore? That could be a sign that the trauma is accumulating to the point where you might want to learn some skills, get a little help around it.
And then once you've sort of recognized this in yourself or a loved one, how do they get a hold of Frontline Foundations?
Yeah, well, you can send an email to flf@frontlinefoundations.org. I should know our main number off the top of my head.
But you don't.
But I'm so busy helping people out that I don't mind looking it up here. Our main number is 802-732-2518. Give us a call and we'll talk to you, or send an email.
Right.
Yeah, once you've crossed that bridge of calling the main number and sending an email, one of the 4 people that work here, including me, will get back to you. And we're happy to answer questions. We're happy to talk all kinds of different stuff, strategy. I can even recommend other things that people can do if they're not able, or it's not the right time for them to spend 5 days with us. But the whole point is we're here to help. Okay. So yeah, reach out.
It's good to know. Again, that's Mike Cancellieri from Frontline Foundations, who jumped on Vermontitude with us today. The Outer Limits Health Club doing a fundraiser to help them do the good work that they do. 2,200 steps, half-hour blocks. 257-2348 is the number to call for the Outer Limits. Get yourself signed up, and it doesn't have to be $5. If you can afford more, give more. And I want to thank Mike for coming in and explaining what the good work that Frontlines does. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.